markets, but do remember that in the event of Sebi turning 25, let's listen in to UK Sinha, the chairman of Sebi, who is in conversation with CNBC TV 18's moneycontrol.
Mr. Sinha, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on the Silver Jubilee celebrations.
Thank you.
25 years is a long, commendable set of achievements for Sebi. But I'd like to hear it from you itself on how you think Sebi, as a regulator of markets in an emerging country, has been able to distinguish itself from its peer group and been able to make a mark for the kind of work that it's done.
You see, when we were created in 1988, our immediate challenge was to get our credibility with the intermediaries. If you recall, there were several protests about who is Sebi, what are they going to achieve, what are their powers. We faced a lot of judicial actions which we fought up to the Supreme Court. From that level, now we have come to a level where we are now agitating and talking about how do we protect the interest of the small investors. So we have covered a long distance.
All right, so let me offer my congratulations on everything that Sebi has achieved over the last 25 years, you along with the several past chairmen and the entire staff of Sebi, sir. But I think as regulators are wont to do, you'd rather look ahead than look behind. As you look ahead, I think the first key thing that strikes me as an important issue that needs to be resolved is whether Sebi is equipped with the resources, monetary and otherwise, to deal with the challenges that a fast-moving, innovating marketplace will throw up in the years to come. And I'll just, a slightly long question, but I'll put some points there to you. For instance, from the resource front, okay? Unfair to draw a parallel with the SEC, but I'll still do that. The SEC in the FY14 budget that it's put to its government has put in a proposal to add 670 odd people. That's the full strength of Sebi. So SEC is intending to add a Sebi in 1 year to itself as opposed to, our size. If you look at the budgets, they've put out a $1.6 billion request for a budget. Our budgets are about 400 crores, and I think that number is also slightly inflated because of the recent capital expenditure. So I think on that front, we desperately need more resources if the government wants the regulator to do an effective job of protecting investors, which is your first mandate. On the second front, sir, more powers for Sebi. Recent instances, whether it's the Sahara case, where Sebi has had to repeatedly go back to the Supreme Court to be able to get directions to do what the Supreme Court order itself asks Sebi to do, which is to attach assets, etc., the restricted powers that you have to attach assets, or the Sarda chit fund matter, where it's taken you 3 years to be able to go ahead and take any action. I'm sure that frustrates you as a regulator as well. What needs to be done to equip Sebi for the next 25 years?
It's a long question.
I know, I'm sorry.
Allow me to give a long answer. Every country has its own cultural and historical perspective. You were talking about the US SEC. But one major positive which Sebi in India has compared to SEC is that we are financially independent.
Right.
I had a discussion with the previous SEC chairperson, and she had a problem in getting her budget approved by the US Senate.
Yes.
Even the requirements of the Dodd-Frank Act and the amount of legislation, subordinate legislation that they had to do, they didn't get the manpower for pretty long time, and they were not able to meet that timeline. So we are happy that we are financially independent. The Parliament of India has given us power to raise our own resources. We are not dependent upon the government for that purpose. I'm also very happy to note that you and many friends in the media are raising the question of our resource constraints. We are a small organization. We need to strengthen some of our divisions, especially the enforcement division, the investigation and surveillance division. I would like to assure you that finances will not be a constraint.
But you're dipping into reserves this year, for instance, right?
Yes, we are.
To make up for the deficit in your numbers, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't mean this as a criticism. I just mean this as a being able to equip yourself, because markets are getting more technology-oriented.
Yes.
Surveillance, therefore, needs large IT budgets. All of this needs money, effective, regulation in that sense. So while you're independent is great credit to you, but don't you need more money?
I need more money, but I do not want money from the government. I must make it very clear.
How do you hope to raise it on your own?
I will have to raise it on my own when the markets improve. When the markets improve, hopefully the activities will improve. So far as our enforcement action is concerned, surveillance is concerned, we will not be found lacking. although I do appreciate your concern, and I have seen many news articles.
Today there are a bunch of editorials saying so.
Saying that Sebi doesn't have the wherewithal. At the same time, I must make it very clear that I do not want any grant or loan from the government. I should be, and I think in the long run, it is for the health of the market and health of Sebi, that Sebi should be able to find resources of its own.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I understand that from an independence of the regulator point of view. Yeah. What about strengthening the Act?
And about the Act, we have some very serious difficulties. And all I can inform you is that we have taken up the matter with the government. We have been assured by the government that government is taking it up very seriously. For example, if Sebi passes an order against an intermediary who has to do business and be here in the market, he is likely to respond to our orders and pay up. But if somebody is not directly connected with the market, he is not obliged to pay, because the mechanism for me to recover that money is very, very cumbersome. And recently new legislations have come. For example, the CCI, which has come, Competition Commission of India, or the income tax law. There the recovery mechanism is much more stronger.
Absolutely.
I think there is about more than 150 crores worth of penalties which we have enforced, which we have imposed, but they have not been recovered. Similarly, we do not have right and power to demand for documents.
Yeah.
We have to go to a different court for that purpose, whereas many other regulators, even in India, have now got those powers. My feeling is that the government is cognizant of these deficiencies in the Sebi system. I think for some time, I'm talking of the last 1 year or so, government was also toying with the idea that they would like to wait for the FSLRC report to come and then take a comprehensive view. I'm now informed by the government that they are not going to wait for FSLRC. They realize that Sebi Act has to be strengthened without waiting for FSLRC, and they are working in that direction.
What is your view on the FSLRC report? And secondly, I also want to come to regulatory overlap with the FSDC, because I think that's where one of your key issues with chit funds, the problem with that lies.
Coming to FSLRC, I would like to make only one comment at this stage, is that this country has a problem of multiplicity of regulators, and their areas are not well defined, not well demarcated. At times it leads to problems, and the CIS schemes are one such major example. So whatever view government or the parliament has to take about FSLRC recommendation about combining various regulators, they have to keep two contrasting things in mind. One is how to ensure that a particular set of activity is assigned to a particular regulator on the one hand, and secondly, how to ensure that the accountability of that regulator is also ensured. In this country, I honestly feel that the question of accountability of regulator has not been properly addressed. That also needs to be addressed.